That was a great deal of sincerity.
Hi, Jeff.
Hey, Wes.
I don't know if this is the right setup, but
I think it's fine.
okay.
I want people to feel like we're having a conversation tonight.
Yeah.
So. How are you?
Good. Just busy as always,
Oh, crazy day.
Yeah.
Just a million things going on.
Me too.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Hey, August.
How's it going?
Oh, it's going okay. How about you? Well, that's another great deal of enthusiasm.
Yeah. That's cool. Well, I don't want this chair.
Oh, I can stay in this one. Well, I feel like I'm.
This one makes you feel very upright.
I don't know, maybe.
Recline.
Well, just to let you know, we are in the process of ordering new chairs, so these old ones will be gone soon.
At least this one doesn't recline while you're sitting down.
Right, or sink down too low.
Do you print us out packets or do we have packets?
There aren't any packets, because the only thing on the agenda for tonight is the vacation rental discussion.
I just saw that
So,
the agenda and the packet was the same thing.
yeah. I did print out these questions. Yeah, Jeff came up with for.
Hey, Mary.
Hi.
Oh, that's just, I
How
think
you
that was
guys
the pen that
doing?
was with it.
Yeah.
That's why I was. Oh, let's see. Who do I want to be today?
Jeff, is there usually a sign-in sheet for the public for comment or?
No,
or is it-
we have,
That's just a city council
we
thing, right?
catch it,
Okay,
on
I'm gonna have-
Joanna catches it.
okay,
So she should, but I don't have. The agenda generally tells folks, on the web, they're coming in,
mm-hmm,
how to participate. I don't
okay.
think I have the instructions. Oh, I've got something that might work.
I think you need new chairs. Might be time to.
We are in the process.
Oh, good. Yeah, the library got some new chairs.
You should go sit in the library.
We could. Oh, how have you been, August? What have you been up to?
Just work. My weekends are in the middle of the week, so of course it rained and stormed.
And boy, did it ever.
And then, of course, this weekend, Saturday, it was.
Hi, how are you? I'm well. What are you up to?
Oh, hi, Mary.
Kind of see what's going on. Oh, I'm so sorry. Here, I'm spread out because I have so much junk. We'll be right
It
back.
did.
You didn't?
I didn't.
Oh, well, I guess we get to keep you.
You sure
I'm
did.
dealing with everything. Just trying to-
Pioneer, but they.
Well, I'm trying to buy the house.
Well, it's because I don't think the final results were final.
Where is this? Where are you living? Just up there, tomorrow's home house.
Not even sure where she lives, sadly.
With the little library in front.
No,
No, yeah.
No, I think
They Cooper.
I've done it.
You've delved enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where the apple trees are,
It was kind of fun, actually, in many
across from that
ways.
empty lot.
Just in terms of
Andy's across the street from.
chatting with a lot of folks.
Yeah.
It was interesting.
Where's that
It
coming
was,
from? I mowed yesterday and I had some down, stuff, and so I had to use the chainsaw. Wow, my body.
Well, good on you using a chainsaw.
I'm dangerous now.
Wow. Yeah.
You started?
I'm great too.
It's not a huge,
I've never used a chainsaw.
yeah, you have to be
That's very
really careful, yeah.
Well, there's a few places I choose not to go.
Oh,
It's one of them.
got these Lara bars. I had to order one special at AMJ. There's
Those
just
are good.
2 ingredients. It has dates and it has sugar. And my niece and well, she and her wife were out here and they took me hiking up that was a. Oh, wow.
Man.
Yeah, bald, and it was a hot day.
Okay. I warmed all the chairs up for you.
And.
You got the best one, huh?
Yes, he did. He tried every one of them.
Well, I didn't try the one over there.
The one that falls back.
I think there are a couple of them, so.
I think that's the one all the way in the corner.
We got rid of quite a few of
There's that one
them,
with
so.
the dog that chewed the part of the cushion out. And then.
See, I was wondering what happened to this one, because that's the one I was using. It's like, how did the cushion get torn apart?
How are you?
Yeah, it's been-
This is our new
So,
city
My
administrator.
grandchildren, I had onions for dinner and now that's all I can smell. Is there anything I need?
I had curry, so we'll just.
Okay, we'll stand
We'll
together.
sit over here together.
He is on the planning commission.
Do I need one of those?
If you'd like, yeah, it's the questions in the memo that Jeff
Okay, that job
put
done.
together, yeah.
This is.
Okay.
Well, I'm trying. We'll see. I'm trying. What do you guys here for? Oh, the. That must be a job. Yeah, that's fine. If you want to talk about it.
It's quiet.
Well, Jeff, thank you for running for office. It's always good to see people stepping up.
Yeah, I enjoyed it, quite frankly. You know, I
Did you
got
meet a
to,
lot of your neighbors?
well, yeah, you know, renew a number of acquaintances and make some new ones. It was fun.
It's fun.
I enjoyed it. I
Yeah.
enjoyed it.
Okay, we have a few people on Zoom.
Well, Tony's on Zoom.
Is he?
Yes, I made it.
Yay.
Welcome, Tony.
Thank you.
Here, we'll put your sign over here somewhere, so.
Halfway down.
Yeah. I guess we can put it over here with Joanne. So we'll get started here in just a minute. Going by the official clock.
Right, wow.
It never
We
agreed.
trust all these.
Yeah, I don't either, but we'll go.
We fixed them since I was last year though.
Yeah.
Yeah, we at least got them somewhat close. They're not an hour ahead. Just gonna go ahead and start recording this so I don't forget.
It's 2:03.
Still really backseat car.
Make sure it's the right one. That surprised me. Like, three years, three.
Let's get started. Let's call the meeting to order. We have a quorum, so we're in business there. Wes, do you want to run through folks online in terms of how they can key in?
Sure. So for the folks online, I have permitted you to speak on the webinar side, so you should be able to unmute and just speak on there. And let me know if you are having any trouble with that, and I'll make sure to keep an eye on you.
Okay, thanks,
Yeah.
Wes.
Mhm.
And Wes, we have a new staff person. Why don't you introduce him?
Yes, we do. This is Daniel. He is our new permit and records manager. So his first day was last week. So we are excited to have him on board and to help with the planning and permitting and everything else we have going on. So we're glad to have him.
Welcome, Daniel.
Yep.
Okay. In our meeting today, we want to have a conversation with folks about vacation rentals. It's not a public hearing because we don't have a proposal out there. We're not, proposing anything specific. What we want is some input back from you so that we can make a recommendation to the city council. The city council has come to us based on some concerns that folks voiced about vacation rentals and asked us to go back and review the policy and how it's working. The original vacation rental ordinance was adopted in 2016. And so it's been around for a while. But it recognizes, I think, two important things. It recognizes that doing vacation rentals contributes to the city's comprehensive plan, tourism goals. So it makes that contribution, but it also recognizes that it has the potential to be incompatible with surrounding or adjacent uses. So, those are the two things that are really in play as we look at the ordinance. And a number of the topics that have come up is we had an earlier listening session in August. We've had conversations with city staff. We've done some research in some of the adjacent cities in terms of how they handle vacation rentals. So we sort of have put together a number of topics that we're looking at. Do we have a potential loss of our neighborhood characteristics and livability if we have too many vacation rentals? And what is too many? Can vacation rentals result in a reduction in the housing that we might need for long-term residents, for young families, working families, and others? Does the ordinance adequately assure that these vacation rentals meet basic fire and safety standards? We found the ordinance was so vague in terms of what applies. They said, hey, make sure that they're consistent or in compliance with all applicable regulations. Well, we're not quite sure what all applicable regulations mean. So it's not a very enlightening provision in terms of the ordinance. We also have some spotty compliance with the existing ordinance. There's 23 in sort of fully and partially licensed vacation rentals in the city. And what we have are 9 that are fully licensed, which means they've paid the license fee and they've also submitted all the necessary information that's required under the city's vacation rental ordinance in terms of notices and postings. The other 14, it's not that they're not fully, that they're deliberately not fully licensed. It's a disconnect, we think, in terms of how it's administered. The fee is collected for the city through the Department of Revenue. And there seems to be a disconnect because the other provisions that the vacation rental folks need to comply with, that works directly through the city. So with that disconnect, we think that that's why we're not seeing all of them being fully compliant with the license requirements. Currently, that 23% equals about 2.5% of the city's single-family housing stock. 7 of them most of them are owned by local residents. 7 of them are, however, are owned and operated by out-of-city folks. And I think one of the things that we looked at as well is that it is, in fact, a commercial use in a residential zone. But how do we treat that? And how does the city staff treat it? It's tourist lodging, but obviously you're not going to apply the same standards to a vacation rental that you apply to, say, Skamania Lodge. That doesn't make any sense. And it also places quite a burden on city staff to do the administration and inspections. And we think a lot of that could be shifted to folks that want to run a vacation rental. So tonight, we would really like to hear from you. As I mentioned, we looked at ordinances in the other cities, and they're all very similar. They seem to be on the same basic model language. They all have a limit in terms of how many vacation rentals there are, with the exception of Stevenson. They either prescribe a specific number of licenses that are available or a certain percentage of the single-family housing stock. They provide the same basic operational requirements. It's like there was a model out there and everybody adopted it in terms of what we looked at was Hood River, Bingen, and White Salmon. North Bonneville does not have a vacation rental ordinance. Their tourist homes are considered a conditional use. So those go through a more rigorous review and approval process than we have with vacation rentals here in this town. So we also, yeah, Mary.
Are you going to do the comments portion first? Like not for this, but if somebody came here for something else, like usually we have on the agenda?
Well, we could, Mary. Yeah, but let me just finish here,
Okay.
and if you've got something you want to do or put out there, that'd be great. So we had posed some questions, and well, hopefully you've taken a look at it in terms of some of the stuff we'd like to get some feedback on. Specifically, what we were looking for was, I guess I don't even have those questions. Yeah. Should we cap the numbers in our residential neighborhoods? Everybody does cap them in residential neighborhoods. In commercial zones, they're not capped in Hood River, and I don't believe they're capped in White Salmon either. And how many vacation rentals should an individual own and operate? A number of the cities say 1, some say 2. And some differentiate between a house sharing and a vacation rental. A house share is basically a vacation rental that occurs in the house in which the owner is living at the same time. And a vacation rental is a separate dwelling, that is simply used only for vacation rental. The owner doesn't live in it. So there's some distinction there. But part of the question too is, some of the cities require that the owners operators be residents of the city. And I assume that that has to do because you want to try and maintain the neighborhood characteristic. Most ordinances limit the number of occupants. And they do that, in general, I think the three key ordinances say 2 guests per bedroom plus 2. So if you had a 2-bedroom house, it would be 6 guests. Hood River also says you can have, for a social event, you could have twice that many. But they also say no big parties, no wedding rehearsals, no weddings, that. So in other words, it's not being used as a commercial venue there. And how should the owners be responsible for ensuring their rental is being respectful to neighbors? How do they do that? And should those vacation rentals be responsible for building and fire safety, and what are the standards? So those are the questions that we're trying to come to grips with. I'd ask any of the planning commission members if they have anything they want to add, and then Mary, we'll go to you.
I think you did a great job.
Thanks, Mary. August?
Good.
Mary, what have you got for us?
Well, I went to the Columbia Gorge Sustainability Housing Conference in the Dells last week. And it brought home the fact that we don't have enough affordable housing here in the Gorge. And I've spoken to y'all before that housing is not going to magically happen because we want it to. There are going to have to be policies put into place for affordable housing, deed restrictions, subdivision restrictions. If you put in 100 homes, 50 will have to be affordable. I mean, there's no, and I think we've talked about people come to small towns like ours because they like the rural aspect, but then they want all these changes too, movie theaters, sidewalks, everything else that goes with, policies have to be put in place. I do want you all to know that Mid-Columbia Housing is doing a really, really good job of putting in affordable housing. Unfortunately, most of it is in the Dalles, and I believe 130 apartments and housing will be available in Hood River, 14 houses up in Carson. And besides the apartments that are there off of Iman Cemetery. So they're doing a good job in bringing affordable housing to the communities, but we still need more here in our community. So maybe having Mid-Columbia come give you all a talk about what's going on and how, and I have put up the Manor Apartments as one that they should buy and renovate. And we talked about the hotel too, buying the hotel and making part of it affordable housing. So we need policies that will actually make affordable housing, not just hope that the market will miraculously make it happen. It's going to happen because people want it to happen, and Mid-Columbia Housing Authority is doing a good job. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. Yeah, that might be interesting to have that presentation made at some point. Yeah, I had listened to a presentation from them on the Carson development and sort of wondered why we don't see something similar in Stevenson, given that you have more of the amenities, shopping and services here, but you would think that would be logical. So. Yes.
So my name is Christine Hess, and my husband and I, Martin, do have an Airbnb in town. So I would like to address first, thank you very much for starting to look into this. So I did this in 2018. We actually had a renter downstairs. We live in a 2-story house. We live upstairs, and so I guess we're more of a home share.
Home share. Yeah.
And so the downstairs, we have a lot of family that comes. And so, we like to keep it occupied.
Dates for family and friends, but we've been running it pretty successfully since we licensed with the city
in
7
2000
years ago.
Yeah, 2018. And so, what works really well is if you do go through the procedure, like we went to all our neighbors, we had to send in, talk to them, tell them we're gonna do it, they had to approve it. The website, I had to start from the beginning. Yeah, the application process is, your application process, if everyone follows it, does address, fire and safety and no, it doesn't. Well, maybe on the Airbnb, like it shows, do you have a fire extinguisher? Do you have a, smoke detector and those types of things? We don't allow too many people at our place, just 4 is the number. We go upstairs, we don't allow smoking in it. Someone tried to vape once and I'm like, that's smoking. I'm sorry. Smoke is no pads. Like, so we have some really strict rules. But we also are worried about affordability and housing in town. And so I understand we had friends in Hood River who had some in town, had multiple ones, and they had to just have one. And so,
Having limits is probably a good
yeah,
policy.
I definitely think limits is a good thing. And that everyone should be licensed and follow the rules and regulations and pay the fees and do it that way.
I think if you're not a resident, you would definitely want to limit, the number of units that you could have. Just seems to make sense. We've had good luck with ours, partly because we're on premises, but I think, being in town is the next best thing. But if you're trying to do it remotely, from another state or, somewhere far away, it becomes more complicated and a little bit difficult. So, I don't like the idea of having somebody investing in a lot of properties, just for the economic benefit and not really having a role in the community.
And especially with that, ours is really busy, Memorial Day to Labor Day. So things
Seasonal.
very seasonal, and other people I've spoke to also are very seasonal. And so you have housing sitting for 9 months. We have friends and family who come and visit during that time. And then we use it for our office or exercise room. So it's utilized for us
Year round.
year round. We also have a tour company, so it works out really well. Sometimes people stay there and then just take a tour with us. So for us, we have 2 separate businesses kind of on our property, so it works really, really well for us in our situation. Just gives a little extra income, and it's really good for tourism. Most people are here for weddings. They can't always afford to stay at the lodge. And there aren't too many options. Our Bliss has been fantastic, and the Stevenson Hotel, but options,
We get referrals from them occasionally.
there aren't many options, when people do come in for weddings and big events.
So are you go through Airbnb?
Yes, we're just one.
Exclusively, yeah.
So what kind of requirements do they have in terms of the condition and your rules and procedures? Do they have anything to ensure that, if they put someone there, it's a quality place to stay? Do they have for example, fire and safety requirements you have to meet?
Well, they themselves haven't checked on it. There are boxes that you have to check and say you have these things. Right, so
Every guest does a review.
yeah, that's
So
true.
it kind of places itself, you can, you have an opportunity to preview your guests' portfolio or history, as
Yeah,
they
yeah.
do for you.
And there is, if you rent so many days and we're always underneath, there's extra insurance that you have to have, but we do have to turn in to them our insurance policy for our house, and I forget what the days are, it's like under 120 or something like that.
So you have reporting requirements for
Yeah.
both Airbnb and the city, right?
Yeah, and we also report to the state of Washington monthly, you know, how much
Income.
income we have and pay the fee to
Okay,
them.
hotel and lodging
Yeah.
taxes, basically.
So we do that every
The
month.
fire and ambulance tax.
That's not what
Fire
it
and
is for.
ambulance tax.
Yeah, so it's a process.
Back up on the taxes. Now, the hotel motel doesn't pay for ambulance.
No, they do, they pay the same, they say, they pay the same, uh, there's a tax. Yes,
The
that's the law,
lodging.
yes.
Yeah, the lodging tax, because you can't use that tax for anything else if you're gonna use that money. So I'm sure EMS would bitch if they weren't getting their fair share, so that might need a little more explanation. Cause I know the hotel motel tax, I've never heard it referred to as for
Lodging.
EMS.
So may I?
Mhm.
Yes. So I'm gonna jump in. I wear many hats in this conversation. I operate something very similar to you guys. You know, mine is actually like a whole entire unit. You know,
Oh, not a hotel.
kitchen, you know, it's upstairs, downstairs, but it's kitchen and everything. But I'm a home inspector. So if I was to come to your house, would you have fire protection between your garage and your stuff? When I go to inspect your bedroom that you're renting, I'm just making, you know, versus your apartment with the whole thing versus your ADU over there. I think that for my taxes and your taxes, that should be inspected as a building should be inspected as the building should be, da, 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 da. So that gets a little confusing. Oh, because again, there's not something defined for what we're gonna be called is the shared thing, which is actually two entire units, but we're called an apartment. Versus somebody renting out a bedroom in their house or their basement next to their garage, but they live upstairs and it's just a bedroom. But if a person like myself was gonna go in there and inspect, I wouldn't my licenses and insurance wouldn't really stretch very far when I just walked into a bedroom and walked out because the house contains the bedroom. Right, so there's a lot of safety things. That's why I said it's the fire and ambulance tax. Because everybody's got to participate, especially the ones who aren't being captured by the taxes that we all pay to have, because it's all incremental. I mean, I don't pay for every fire truck,
Jen,
right?
I think Joanna has a question.
Your name.
Greg Felton.
Thank you. That's what I was gonna ask. If you could provide either your name or have a sign-in sheet, that would be great. That's all I need. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Joanna.
So again, I am a resident. I also have a shared unit, which I would really call a separate ADU because it's entirely separated locks and all kinds of stuff, right? So if you came and stayed with me, you would feel like you were in a separate unit. But it's not in a separate building. So when the city comes to my house, I expect them to go stem to stern on my house so that we can make sure that people stay in my unit are safe. Now, what I was thinking when you were talking about the housing authority and we talked about how we don't like outside agencies coming in and gobbling up our rental units. And aside, I wouldn't be renting my space long-term regardless. If I wasn't doing Airbnb, my space would not be a part of a rental market. As an aside. However, when I was thinking of this, I was like, well, gee whiz, we already have some of these guys who are already outside of town. They're investors. They want to invest. Well, then how about this? Let's do it 1-for-1 or 1-for-2. Right? So if you have an Airbnb, maybe we get together and we share some taxes or we share some investment and we build some affordable housing, right? Or if our outside investors want to invest in our up and coming economy, right? Because when people come for windsurfing and all that stuff, they do add to our economy, right? Burgers, fries, all the stuff. But if we made it so that outside investment wanted to come in and again, increase our economy by buying our real estate, paying our taxes and do all this stuff, the next one they buy is after they've paid for some affordable housing or they paid into some collaborative that the city came up with or some organization came up with that said, hey, this group of investors that has 6 Airbnbs, now they have to buy 3 affordable housing units to offset the market share or whatever. Anyway, I'm just thinking about that sort of stuff because in the end of the day, we all live here. And in terms of, and again, another aside, in terms, and I think I know where you guys live, I know our neighbors. In terms of the neighborhood thing and changing the stuff, we moved here only just after you started your Airbnb. When the kids in our neighborhood owned the street, basketball, skateboards, you know, COVID happened, whatever. But then they all graduated high school and they're not in the street anymore. The neighborhoods morph and change, right? So getting glommed up on this whole idea of what we were yesterday is maybe a little bit of a red herring because we're always going to be something different tomorrow. Whether it's, you know, it's not probably going to be parties in the street like Daytona. Some of us are like that, but that's besides the point, right? I mean, it's mostly gonna, I don't want Daytona. It's gonna change, right? The kids are gonna grow, they're gonna graduate, they're gonna move away, or they're gonna stay home, or whatever. They're gonna have their own Airbnb. I don't know. But I think the way to approach this is from a greater, larger view that encompasses a lot of these ideas that everybody's presenting, so that not only are we protected and represented from the fire and ambulance tax and all that sort of stuff, we're also respecting the nature of the city and the nature of what the city is going to become, right? Because it's going to become something different tomorrow than it was today. And I'll shut up. Thank you very much.
Other thoughts? Yeah.
I'm also a little surprised that that you only list 23 vacation rentals, either fully or partially licensed, because if you go on, you know, some of these platforms like Airbnb or VRBO or whatever.
But they don't all have the same performance level for participation. Right? You know, some of these platforms don't require, and you're right, Airbnb, we can check our own box, right? You don't have to have somebody send in an inspection report, but some of these other platforms just don't have that high of a
Well,
threshold.
I think what Marty's getting at is
Sorry.
that there's way more than 23.
Yeah.
And they're not being captured. And we've talked about this in the past. And one of the things was having the staff to actually go do the research on all the Zillow and,
And the staff
yeah,
did endeavor to do that, you know, and that's where we got these figures. Is they found that the ones that were even partially, you know, licensed were on Airbnb or Vacasa or whatever those sites are. So I don't, if there's more out there, you know, that simply suggests that, you know, that.
They're flying under the radar.
Well, yeah, they may well
Or
be
the
flying
radar.
under the
We
radar.
don't do that.
Yeah. You know, I'm not quite sure how you get a handle on that. I mean.
But if they've got a social media website listing,
Yeah,
you know, you can contact them.
yeah.
Are you licensed? And if not, why not?
You probably could use your insights in terms of how we go about doing that kind
It
of
just
research.
occurred to me as I'm sitting here.
Yeah.
Well, we got Daniel now. Was that your name?
Well, it's an enforcement issue too, or it'll come to that because you're gonna have to contact them somehow. And and a body's going to have to do it, so, you know, this gentleman talked about, yes, things always change, but, in your community, you need workers. You need people who can actually afford to live in your community and who are vested in your community. And outside investors don't usually invest in your community. They might invest in a product of your community, but not in the community that keeps your community going. Yes, we will all die at some point and things will change, but up to that point, we have a community. And we work with each other, we play with each other, we recreate with each other, and we make a community, whatever that means. So, but in order to keep that community going, you need housing that kids can afford. And I'm talking about 30 or 40-year-olds here. They need someplace. I don't know any young person that in my circle of friends who can afford a home here. They can't. And that will break up a community eventually. If you can't have people who are going to be here for the long term.
Well, this is a nationwide issue, but taking units off the market as Airbnb, you know, is definitely a factor that contributes to that.
But I think there's an important, oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, just kind of listening, I haven't formed, I really don't know the answer, whether I'm pro or against it.
Or against.
When I retired 6 years ago, we moved up here chasing grandkids. But we were also looking regional too.
Sure.
And one of the areas we looked in was Sun River. You know, we could afford it, so that wasn't an issue as far.
Congratulations.
Yes, we could afford it there. We were fortunate there. But when we went around with a real estate agent there in Sun River, there were cul-de-sacs, a lot of cul-de-sacs in that. And there was only 1 or 2 permanent residents and 5 or 6 rentals.
Yeah.
And I was kind of going, okay, well, I think I'm out on that, you know, having weekenders every weekend coming in and that. Sun River, I think, is a different demographic than here, clearly, as far as recreation.
People gotta flip burgers in Sun River.
I'm sorry?
People gotta flip burgers metaphorically in Sun River.
Yeah, but I think they have probably more affordable, well, what we consider affordable housing opportunities. The challenge I see here, living here for now for 6 years as a homeowner is first geography. We have a big river on one side. The other side, we have a mountain going straight up. And what is it? 97% of the county is non-taxable, either federal, state, etc. So we really don't have, unlike a lot of places in the state, the country, where you can spread out lateral. So you're always going to have the affordable housing challenge, because my question is, great, I absolutely, you need affordable housing. Where are you going to put it? And we can talk about all we want. I have a lot of family that are builders. Affordable housing is not profitable to a builder.
That's right.
So that's a challenge too. And then nevertheless, the cost of materials and everything else, you know, you could build a cracker box house. It's still going to cost you 350, 400,000. Is that affordable? You know, so, I guess my biggest challenge on this is I was looking at Zillow today. There's 12 houses in the city limits currently on the market on Zillow. Okay. Most of those homes have been on the market for several months. Do we really have it? So my question is, we're talking about a shortage of housing. Do we have a shortage of housing? We have houses that are on the market.
But how much are those homes?
Yeah.
Well, I get that. My younger daughter lives in Nebraska. She bought her house in a small community just outside of Omaha. And she paid $140,000 for it back in 2017 or 18. That house now is worth $375,000. So it's a nationwide issue. And that's in Nebraska in the farm country, and it's $375,000 for a 1,700 square foot cracker box house. I don't, is the Airbnb issue as far as restricting it truly a big deal in this community?
Yes.
Just like you, well, hold on. Like the gentleman or you folks have said, it's very seasonal here. So I don't know the right answer. And is this something that really is a pressing issue in the community? Because my question to the folks here that own Airbnbs, and I don't know the answer, would it be more profitable for you to rent the house out or the property out for 12 months? Or do you make more money in that 3 months with Airbnb?
I wouldn't even do it. Wouldn't work because of my personal, and I rented in other places, just wouldn't do it. So it wouldn't be on the market. It would never be on the market.
And
It would be empty.
And I'm assuming the reasons are things like renters' rights versus property owner rights where, you know, they don't pay their rent and it takes a year.
My standards versus your standards.
All that, yeah, they trashed the place, blah, blah, blah.
Oh.
But is this really a huge issue to restrict Airbnbs in this community? Or is it better just tightening up an ordinance to where, you know, your property is subject to inspection? If they have a party at your house and they leave trash and beer cans everywhere, if you're, you know, if you don't take care of it immediately, you get a fine.
Sorry, just real quick, do you mind stating your name for the
Yeah,
record?
Mike Perry, and I live in Stevenson,
Okay.
homeowner in Stevenson.
Thank you.
And
So,
and I don't, like I said, I don't know
I think this is.
well, I have a different answer than Greg, so I'll state it quickly. And again, I'm Martin Hecht. I've been a resident since 1990, so I've been around a little while, what, 35 years? And I did rent monthly for many years till I married Christine. We've been together now 10 years. It was really her project to convert the monthly rental into Airbnb. So it did kind of take it out of the, you know, affordable housing. And but the Airbnb, we like it for a personal lifestyle because we can block dates for friends and family, where I was renting monthly and I could. So even though we go many months without Airbnb income, we still prefer to, you know, to operate that way, to capture the income in the tour season in the summer months, so that we can, you know, have family and friends in the down times. I also think it makes sense to restrict total numbers because you can see what's happened in the neighboring communities, Hood River and White Salmon, and maybe, you know, we all have some insight into how they put moratoriums on Airbnb. And, you know, when they do that, it pushes more of those vacation renters our direction. We don't want to run into some of the same issues that they've had. And so I think it makes sense to think ahead and get ahead of that. And I think some of the problems they've had over there are with non-residents investing, you know, coming in and purchasing properties just for the sake of vacation rentals. You know, that's got a number of downsides to that type of a program. So I just commend you on, you know, taking action, having this meeting, getting people's thoughts and opinions on it. And I think, maybe it does require restrictions and moratoriums or just maximum, just to have control over, our lifestyle and our livability and our communities that we choose to live in. So,
I have one question that we haven't really made a distinction between the, what do we want to call it, the home share and the dedicated unit that is, just solely.
right,
I mean, that dedicated standalone vacation rental that is not a full-time resident, that does take something away from housing stock. But what you're doing and what you're doing, Greg, that really doesn't. That really doesn't have any impact on
No
housing.
plus, no minus. It's a straight dead even.
Right. And it
It's
also
something.
seems,
Can I? Sorry,
Sure.
D. Elliott, Stevenson, a homeowner.
Sure.
Getting back to what I think Mary was saying too, I can't help but think that like this distinction is important because if you allow maybe some like if there's no limit as long as it's your residence and it's either like an ADU or a home share, that actually encourages home ownership. Like if we basically made it fair, like because like what increases home cost is a lot of regulations, like saying you got to do it like this and you got to do it like this and you can only do it here and it has to be like this. But if we say to everybody, hey, if you build an ADU on your property, like that can get grandfather, that immediately can be, that increases density and increases a kind of gentle density. It makes home ownership more achievable because it gives people who are residents of that place a way to make money also to help offset the cost of the place to begin with. So like if that was part of the whole home ownership plan for some people, is that hey, if we have like an ADU or a home share or like maybe it's a duplexy thing and like we live in part of it and rent out the other part or like rent or do it starts to create more density in a way that even even if their initial plan was Verbo or Airbnb or something like that, maybe they also see, hey, you know what? I would actually like someone who worked at like Red Bluff or Big River Grill to just rent this thing all year, and that would be nice to like I just met like I know you get to know your neighbors and you get to know people around town, and maybe all of a sudden this one bedroom ADU becomes something that you do let for a longer period of time, and now we've created more density because we've allowed homeowners who are full-time residents to do this.
I think what you'll find though, AD, is that most ADUs are being rented out as vacation rentals, not as to help the local economy and to have an affordable, that was the intent, but that's not what it turned out to be.
Well, if it's
But-
residences, if it's like the person who if it's on their property and the person owns the property, it is I mean, one, it helps our economy. No matter one way or another, people coming in helps the economy. But two, it does make that person's house more affordable to them. Like if you're making passive income from your residence in Stevenson, you now have a more affordable house, just straight up. That money, and even the people in here that are talking, I'd be willing to bet their house is more affordable because of the income they're getting from these vacation rentals.
Or I have more disposable income to buy hamburgers and french fries on Main Street. The
Bingo.
same as the people that are coming in vacationing because they don't want to make food in the house that I have well complimented them for. But this is, again, it's very circular. We get very circular on this. I'm jumping in, sorry, I'm not trying to cut you off.
No, but that differentiation is important because I think somebody from the outside who doesn't live in town and just like invests, that does not contribute to affordability. But say you're, I mean, getting back to the 30s, 40s, say you're a person in your upper 30s or something, and you've got a kid or two, and you're like, well, we could afford in Stevenson if we rent out this ADU part of the year. Like that actually would pay for, that would help us afford it, put some kids in school. Now all of a sudden you open up an affordability path for people who might not otherwise have it.
Thank you for bringing that point up, because I've been here 35 years, but if I think back in my history, I was a renter here in 1990. I bought my home in 94, and it's a bigger house in my 30s. It's a 3-bedroom, 3-bathroom with 2 kitchens, blah, blah. There's no way I could afford that mortgage. I took a leap of faith with a plan of renting out rooms, the lower level and an upstairs bedroom. And that allowed me to buy the home, because I couldn't have done it otherwise.
And I want to say that I think this is an important like affordability housing story that often doesn't get told, because we're hearing it makes it affordable to live in Stevenson if you can rent out this additional place that you have, even for a vacation rental. Now a resident can live full time that might not have been able to own otherwise. And unlike a lot of times, the problem you run into with like the traditional affordable housing is the incentives are bad. Meaning if the government is subsidizing part of the cost, and the person just kind of lives where they live and they're not owning, and it's not even necessarily their money, and the person who owns it behind the scenes, they don't have a huge incentive to keep it nice. Like if you look at the affordable housing in Stevenson, why does it get run down so fast? Because the owners have no incentive to keep it looking nice, and the people who live there don't feel bought into it either. So it deteriorates very quickly. Manor is like an easy like example of this, but whereas it's the exact opposite, where it's an ADU on your house, to where you have a massive incentive now to keep it very nice, to police the kind of people who are going to be in there. And now you can own a home when you otherwise might not be able to. I mean, to me, that's a massive affordability success story that is great for the town.
Agreed.
Well, that opportunity already exists, so it's kind of part and parcel from the conversation about vacation rentals. You can build an ADU now if you want to.
I'd say make it easier even.
Do it now.
You gotta talk to the bank.
Come in and apply.
You gotta talk to the bank.
Like in some places like Portland, they'll even have like pre-approved like there's places where they have pre-approved plans.
Mhm.
And you can just immediately like, hey, this is approved ahead of the point. Like there's even ways to look at like, hey, let's reduce some of the hookup fees potentially to encourage this sort of thing. Again, you want affordability. This is like rather than just saying, oh, well, we got that already. Well, let's actually encourage it through policy. Like Mary was saying, like what policies can we do to make this even more affordable, even more achievable, even easier for people?
Thoughts?
A little bit different conversation, but
Yeah.
Outside of the city.
No, I think
It's a different.
It's vacation rentals. I'm saying let's make it easy to do vacation rentals for residents of the city for that
you
reason.
can already do
On site.
ADUs. If you want to build an ADU, come in and get a permit. That doesn't have to do
But
with the
first go to the
vacation.
bank and buy a property that you qualify for.
Yeah.
Cause that's
We're
where that
talking about
discussion begins.
vacation rentals.
well, I think
But
even.
the point was that just having a ADU or a home share or anything like that can help somebody become a homeowner.
And if you
Well,
limited the number of people that were able to do that, if there was any sort of limit on the number of residents of the city, you would be cutting off that avenue for them. Which is very germane to this
Come
conversation.
come talk to the city and see what you can do now. You may answer some of your own questions.
Do you have a question?
I
do, I have several.
Angie.
My name is Angie Martin. I am a resident here in Stevenson, also work, with the Chamber of Commerce. I just have several questions. I do hear, we do a lot of surveying of our local businesses. And housing availability and affordability is, a top concern, of business owners. I also wear the tourism promotion hat, so I am very pro tourism and love Airbnb, vacation rentals. But I just had some questions about like, what is your current process for licensing? I know you said that goes through the state. but it sounds like it's a bit disjointed, so I was just wondering, what is the current process for licensing and enforcement?
Well, currently, the fee is collected by the state. But the administrative aspects are, in terms of the actual license, the checklist, making sure that all the operational requirements, that falls on city staff. And I think one of the questions that we had is how do you shift that back to the owner operator more than having to put that on city staff? In other words, if there's going to be, for example, an inspection of a vacation rental to ensure that it meets certain health or safety requirements, should that be something that we say, hey, this needs to be done and here's the standard, and that's what the prospective operator has done, rather than having the city have to do that? Because the city doesn't now do those types of inspections. They don't do those inspections on Skamania Lodge or Art Bliss or any of the other lodging facilities. And it's a fairly small staff. So how do you make sure you're using the city staff most efficiently? So that was.
And also, as far as like making sure that lodging taxes are being paid and so that everybody's in the same level playing field.
Yeah, there would still be a license requirement, and those folks would have to come in and say, yes, we've done all this. There would be an enforcement provision that the city would still have to make sure that that's still done. But I think what we were trying to do is to say, let's just get down to just what's the essential thing for city staff to have to do, rather than loading them up and making it a really complicated program. That really doesn't add value.
Yeah, one thing I'd like to say, just in terms of the staffing aspect, is that is one area is where the actual enforcement has been lacking. And like you said, that there was a disjointed connection, between the state collecting the tax and then staff not necessarily looking over who has paid their fees or the applications. And so that process has been lacking on our end. And one thing I want to do and why I'm so grateful that Daniel's on board is that that's an aspect of this that we can start to focus more on is do better enforcement, and not just enforcement, but also the process of applying and permitting and fees, I think should be a lot easier for the folks who want to do it, because as far as I can tell, it's very confusing. Do you go through the state? Do you go through us? Where does that responsibility lie?
So 8 years ago, when we started, the city you had to get your license from the city. Just 2 years ago, I believe, did they switch it to the state.
Yeah.
So that's been confusing even on our aspect, because I was always getting a letter from the city, and then luckily we have a business, and so I went online, and there is the letter. Now we're doing it there. So not everyone maybe got that memo at first, so I think last year probably was some problems. And then when we first did it, the city gave us a packet. It was a thick packet, and someone did come out to the house and do an inspection. But ever since then, there hasn't been any inspections. We self-police ourselves, I guess.
Yeah.
So the process to start is really good, but I don't know the follow through, and I don't know the answer.
I would say for the cost, you do an initial inspection. Okay, I decide I'm gonna make my property an Airbnb. There's an initial inspection by an appointee of the city, inspector, et cetera. Then after that, I think the reality is you can do it annually when they renew their license, or a condition upon renewing the license. There's a self-inspection that, do you have a visible address? Do you have, the various requirements? And that owner of that property then attests to the fact that, yes, we have X, Y, and Z done, and then they mail it. One is more cost effective than sending an inspector out, to do an inspection of a single family residence.
Can I jump in here on a administrative point?
let me just make one point real
Sure.
fast. So we used to do that in the fire department in the state of California, I had to do fire inspections of triplexes and up. And we got to the point going, okay, we really weren't, it wasn't much of a benefit. But there was still that liability and the amount of dollars saved in manpower by having that owner of that triplex or apartment do the self-inspection. They have the extinguishers, they have the addresses, they have the smoke detectors. You know, and then if something goes sideways with that property, well, when they do the investigation, the fire investigation or whatever, and they don't have, they didn't have these things that they attested to, well, that's going to probably create an issue for that owner in many different ways as far as liability, insurance, et cetera. But I think with the business owners of the Airbnb, as far as the inspection, after the initial business inspection, I think they're more than capable to fill out the form, send it to the city to renew their license, whether it's annually or twice, or, every other year, whatever I think that in your ordinance.
Let me just jump in here.
Yes.
Real fast. So just as a point of my professional experience, because I do home inspections, when you build a brand new house, you have a certificate of occupancy. That's when the governing officials come out and inspect your home after they've done several inspections along the way. And now you have a certificate of occupancy, and then you can occupy the house. Now, at that point in time, you can ask me to come in and do another inspection of the house, right? Whatever that's worth. Nothing happens legally with that home until it changes ownership, right? Again, so if that's 25 years down the road and there's been no homeowner maintenance, nobody's crossed my heart. We did it. Nobody has to do anything, but they can say they did or didn't do. And that's, I think, a little bit of the point you're trying to make. But just again, as an administrative clarification, nothing has to happen with that property other than this first certificate of occupancy. And if you want to hire somebody like me to do a home inspection when you have a real estate transaction, then you can do that. And that's probably the only next time that home is looked at in earnest. Talk about safety, health, general maintenance, all that stuff.
Unless there's a remodel or something.
Unless, but again, if there's permits and if there's the staffing to go out and enforce and inspect those permits.
If you're going to buy a house, through a bank, the bank will do an inspection and they're going to do a thorough inspection. It will be mandatory. I wanted to ask a question, getting back to our list here. Yes, I think anybody who has a vacation rental should be a resident of the community. That should be like a given. But how much are these vacation rentals going for? Addie made the comment that this will help a homeowner buy their house. Well, will it help them to buy their house, or is it a will it be a thing that's not affordable to the people living in the community? So how much money is being made by these vacation rentals?
I can tell you right now.
I think the gentleman behind you answered that too. He literally said it helps him afford his house.
Well, that was when he moved here in 1990, when he was 30, and now he's 60.
And housing was cheaper.
But we charge affordable prices, I think. It's a 1-bedroom kitchen, the whole thing, 800 square foot,
But it is
$195.
affordable short term.
Yeah.
Not long term.
But what I was gonna say, it's $195 a night, 2-night minimum. We make about $10,000 a year.
Yeah.
So. it does
Well,
help
yeah,
families.
but how about all of them? So that
You
we
should
can.
have a list. I don't know why
Yeah.
the city doesn't have a list of everyone. If you have to have a license, you shouldn't be going door to door and finding out who has, or having to look at a website.
I think we know who the 24 are somewhere.
So you,
There's a
so you do have a
spreadsheet.
list.
Yeah,
of
there's a
everyone.
spreadsheet.
It obviously varies a lot by date too, because like obviously like peak in the middle of the Bluegrass Festival is going to be a lot more expensive than look in mid-January, and I guarantee you that the Airbnbs are going to be a lot cheaper.
I want to go back to one of the questions here, because one of the things we talked about is what's the impact of vacation rentals on our housing stock?
Mhm.
And it really seems to me that if you're using an ADU or you're doing an in-house home share kind of situation, that really doesn't have an impact, any substantial impact on housing availability, long-term housing availability for families or workers.
So I do know two people who moved here from California, who retired in California, lived there 9 months out of the year, and have purchased two separate homes, and they are in the windsurfing canoe clubs and stuff, and so they live here 3 months out of the year, and then it sits idle for 9 months. So they had, you know, good jobs, extra money, and it sits idle for 9 months. They don't.
So that's a second home.
I guess maybe that's, I mean, they rent it as Airbnb. They say, you know, they have friends and stuff come, but not in the winter, you know, where they're.
Yeah, I know that there's a number of sort of seasonal homes too, where folks are here in the summer and head
Right.
south, I guess, in the winter. But you know, I guess what I'm trying to say is we talked about having some sort of a cap on the number of vacation rentals. But does that really make sense? Should that be just a cap on those sort of freestanding vacation rental homes? And not include the ADUs and the in-house stuff?
That was the point that I was trying to make, is that, and someone kept kind of arguing against it, but like, yeah, I don't think there should be a cap for like, if it's your own house and your own residence and it's just like a house share or an ADU on literally your own plot of land. That's not cutting
Let
into
me
stock.
clarify for you, AD. I don't think anybody's talking about that at all.
He literally just asked the question.
I think
He
everybody's
literally
talking
just
about.
asked, like, he literally, the guy, like, he just asked, should there be no cap? I'm responding directly to the question that was just asked in the room, which is, should there be no cap on this very specific kind of ADU? And I'm responding to that question saying, yes, I agree, there should be no cap on that kind of ADU. And that kind of
ADUs, there's no cap on ADUs, Eddie.
He's asking if there should be. I'm saying.
Hang on. Vacation rentals. And if you don't know the total number of vacation rentals in your community, which we do not, because no study has been done to show how many actual vacation rentals there are. We know these 23, but are there more? And if you don't know, then you can't have a limit or no limit, because we'd like to know the actual amount. So until we get that number, I don't think that's a discussion point yet.
You could still have an opinion about whether a person who owns a property can have on their property, you can have like as a policy say, okay, if it's your property and you live there persistently and you're not just a snowbird or something, that you can there can be an unlimited number of vacation rentals in that scenario. And that's the question that I keep trying to answer.
No, everybody said that's okay. What I think.
Okay. It was literally asked.
I heard, excellent, you're great recall. So what a lot of people, and maybe you sort of misheard, is concerned about is outside investment that does not live here and coming and developing willy-nilly and rampantly and outpricing everybody with every piece of property, and they don't live here. I think that's the bigger question. And I think a lot of the just defining stuff is looking at some of the other communities and how they've done it and the way they've shifted towards making sure that people live in the community or at least live on the property. Adi, I didn't mean to, jump in on you. Sounded like you were kind of going off in a little bit of a different direction there, but I don't think anybody's is really getting into what you're talking about. I think the bank that you
No, but
might
Jeff
wanna go
asked
and get
that
a loan
question.
from.
I was literally
might have
answering the
some
question that
opportunity.
Jeff asked.
All
Like he
right,
asked
right.
that question.
Okay, right,
Like that was the question on the table.
yep.
So I said, I answered it.
Go ahead.
I do have one, and this is just again thrown out. I'm still trying to figure all this out. The comment or it was brought up that, well, maybe it should only be a person that lives in the community that then owns an Airbnb. You know, that sounds great, but I think there's something maybe against that, being against the law, something about probably the Constitution, saying that somebody who lives outside of Stevenson can't purchase a property and intend on using it. That to me
So it's
sounds.
like, wherever you live, if you
Unlimited.
come here and wanna run a business, you have to apply. And you're gonna have to meet those criteria. So
So,
it's not that we're restricting you from using it as you wish. If you wish to use it in this way, here is the criteria you have to follow.
okay,
That's.
May I add a comment?
I guess it just, and I'm no lawyer, but
To
I buy
answer,
a second
Mike?
house tomorrow.
Just a
And
second, Tony.
I buy a second house tomorrow and then next year I decide to make it an Airbnb, but I don't live in the community anymore. Well, wait a minute now. This person who lives in the community can get a license, but because I live one county over, I can't. That's
What government we're doing.
I mean, at what point do we go, well, maybe we have income restrictions before you can move into the community? Or it just, to me, it sounds a little like, well, do we now take a vote on you before you can purchase? It doesn't sound, there's something.
Well, we didn't come up with that idea. It's
No,
one that
I
other
know. I'm
communities
just-
already have, so it's.
Yeah,
And it's passed a legal test that,
yes.
Yes, it
okay,
has.
okay,
Yeah, it is.
The
okay.
river has that.
That you have to be a resident of the city to own an Airbnb?
To operate an Airbnb. Tony, do you want to weigh in here? Your hand's up.
that's all I was gonna say to Mike, was that Hood River passed that ordinance. The Seattle resident took them to court, and it was upheld in court that the city had the right to limit the Airbnb to residents only.
Okay.
You wanna live here, you follow the rules.
Okay. Thanks, Tony. So,
And Mr. Perry, right?
Yes, ma'am.
I've been waiting. We've owned a vacation rental on Sun River. We owned it during COVID when the state shut down vacation rentals.
Mhm.
And at that point, I really thought about just renting it out. We made between 2.5 and 3 times a normal monthly rental on that property owned, and it basically rented from Memorial Day to Labor Day.
Yeah.
And 6 weeks in the winter. The rest of the time it was not occupied unless we wanted to go enjoy. So there is definitely financial gain in owning a VRBO and Airbnb compared to a monthly rental.
Okay.
And I wouldn't want to deny a person the ability to have a second home and then convert it to an Airbnb. I just don't, I would, however, consider denying them the ability to do that, to multiply that, to do that, you know, to buy multiple properties and do that, you know.
Like
'Cause
hedge
that-
funds did in 2008.
It's an appropriate, I guess, analogy, but,
well, nationally, we're seeing.
so I think what you're asking, I think we do need to at some point differentiate between people that are living here and doing rentals, vacation rentals versus people that are outside doing vacation rentals. Doing it, you know, as an absentee landlord. I think we should consider that. And not, you know, on a first home, but on a second, third, or fourth home.
So what it, so rather than just excluding someone who lives a good portion of the year out of town but has a house here, allowing them to have one vacation rentals, I mean,
You as
would
a,
that be?
you as the governing agency would have to determine how often, how many homes that they could own, you know, for an investment property. I'm not gonna, you know, I have my own opinion, I just stated it,
Yeah.
but I just think it's something that we need to consider. This is a brainstorming session, and I would think we need to backstep and differentiate between people that are resident owners and people that are non-resident owners.
And
Mary?
Within
I
the law.
think, we're talking about owners and renters, and one of the policy issues that I always bring up at the Homeless Housing Council and at this conference I attended last week was, do we want to be a nation of renters or home owners? And to do that, you need policies in place that will help people. Nobody can afford a $600,000 home that works at A&J or at Big River Grill or up at Backwoods. It's just not gonna happen. You can, $20 an hour, 25 or $30 an hour, you're not gonna be able to afford a home. I rented for 29 years. Marty and Christine helped to move me. When my California landlords changed my rent 100% from month to month. And I had to move. So I lived in a little apartment for 2.5 years until I found another rental here. And it's a subsidized rental because I can't afford $1,500 on my retirement. So, and I upkeep the house and the landlords do what they need to do. But some landlords are not responsible, just like some leaseors. So, you know, to paint a broad brush and say, you know, renters are bad, I object.
No, I don't think we want to say that. And again, you know, what we're trying to deal with here is how do you maintain the character of a residential neighborhood while still allowing this basically a commercial use to occur? And you know, I think there's been a lot of good ideas. You know, this has been useful for me. I hope it's been useful for our other planning commission members.
I think one of the things that happened, I don't know if y'all remember, there was that big wedding party at a vacation rental up the road, and it got out of hand, and there was a mess. And I remember Judy Jensen came to the city to complain about it because it was next door to her house and that. And I think that kind of sparked a little conversation about, you know, who's going to be responsible for these things, and that you have to be on site, that you have to have somebody whose contact information is right there, and they're going to be there when you call them to complain about it. And that was the requirement for being a resident.
Also, with that said, we had to go to all our neighbors and tell them we're gonna do it, and they have our information, and, you know, we're usually always around in the summer, but if we're not, they have all our contact information, and they know, and we actually, a few of them will tell them, hey, we have people coming this week, or whatever. Everyone's always quiet. It's been a great experience, but our 5 or 6 houses around us are very well aware, and they're okay with everything.
And I think by having the owner operator, you know, responsible for working with their neighbors, keeping the place up, making sure it works well. I mean, if they don't get relicensed, I guess. You know, I think there's sort of you know, an incentive there to make sure it works with your neighbors. I would hope anyway.
And that's why one for one, you know, you have one owner, one vacation rental. I think if you look at Seattle, that's a perfect example of housing gone wrong. Whole neighborhoods were bought up there in 2008 during the countrywide debacle. And they are now going into nobody's renovating them. The people who bought them, the corporations who bought them, are basically running them into the ground. And they're gonna be the responsibility of the unit, yeah, the municipality that's gonna be left with all the crap. Once those houses become, whatever they become, once the money has been leached out of them. So, yeah, in bigger communities, it's a bigger problem, but here, we see it because, you know, you want your young people to have a chance to buy a house. Just not.
No.
I would just say that I go to a lot of conferences where this is a topic of discussion. And so I think it's very prudent to be on top of it and to create some regulation around it instead of being proactive instead of reactive. And because you see a lot of communities that are trying to backpedal on it and dial it back in and deal with backlash from just letting it go willy-nilly and not have regulation. I think it's very prudent to do that, and it just really, I feel like it depends on what your goal and objective is as to how you attack it, whether it's, you know, housing availability, or is it, you know, compliance? Is it, you know, driven by neighborhood complaints? What is the objective? So, but I think it's smart to create regulation around it.
Thanks, Angie. Yeah, and I think that's what Hood River found itself in that place where it was reactive,
Yeah.
you know, and things just got out ahead of them there.
Did Hood River go back to like 15%? I talked to Paul Blackburn years ago, but
I'd have to go look. I've got that ordinance, but I can't remember exactly. I'm not sure that they did put a cap on it.
I thought they did.
A number of them now, I mean, Bingen and White Salmon have caps. I think they're 5 or 10%. Well, Bingen's a specific number or something. So. Any other thoughts from the planning commission members?
I think Tony probably has the answer to that question.
On the Hood River numerical.
Does he?
Tony would know.
He's still here.
He's still here.
Tony.
Hey, Tony, there you go.
I'm
Put you on the
still
spot.
here. I don't know of a cap on the percentage of vacation rentals in Hood River. I believe they were looking for just the natural limitation that was going to take place by having residents only.
Yeah. I think that's right. I looked at that ordinance and I couldn't find any percentage or number cap on the number of units. Now, Bingen and White Salmon have it, but.
So do you know what it cut it down to if it was residents only?
In Hood River.
Well, they may be grandfathered people that were already,
They are grandfathered.
So they
Yes, I don't-
resell
I'm
it.
guessing.
Yeah.
No, they are the provision. I mean, in fact, you know, every time you're gonna change this, oftentimes, you know, those pre-existing uses are
They stay.
grandfathered, yes.
But once it's sold, it goes under the new.
Well, yeah, once the license, you know, is no longer in effect, yeah.
I just want to go back to something that was mentioned earlier, and if you do decide that you want to have inspections be a part of the application process, we paid an application fee to the city 7, 8 years ago. And you could just adjust your fees to cover the cost of the inspection or whatever else you need, you know, to cover your staff costs.
Because it is a business and we do taxes on it,
Yeah.
so you guys should have, you know, access to that information. Maybe you need to have people
To revisit it.
turn it in. I don't know, it's getting technical then, but there's a way to keep track on who's really doing it and legally
Licensed and who's
Sure.
not.
and who's not.
Well, maybe for that initial inspection, as you were suggesting,
Yeah.
you know, that maybe that is included in that initial license fee, and maybe it's not city staff that does it, maybe the city contracts with someone to do that work, rather than creating a position or using a good portion of someone's position.
And Mary's point earlier about having a handle on how many, you know, vacation rentals they really are. I mean, that should precede perhaps even this discussion tonight. You know, we need to know.
And also, one last thing, and I apologize, the chamber should have information, like if people are coming to town, like they should have a list of all the Airbnbs, you know, they could call, they ask about hotels. You know, it'd be nice, and that would be another way of you guys keeping track of what's there.
People do a lot of little onesies. I guess, and what I mean by that is, okay, my house, which is just a couple down from Tony's. You know what? It's the Bluegrass Festival. I know that I can probably get for my house $500 a night for 4 nights. So you know what? I'm gonna go out of town and I'm just gonna, for this one time, rent my house out for 4 nights and make an extra $2,000 to put in my pocket. Is there a lot of that maybe going on? When we're talking, I mean, do you think that happens a lot? Is not necessarily a lot of
That's a
people.
hard thing to regulate, though.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
well,
don't think you would. Yeah.
No.
Plus, you don't know who's gonna rent your house and how you'll find it when you get back.
but I mean, I don't know. Could I go onto Airbnb, make an account, put my
No.
house on,
No,
and then take it off immediately?
no,
No.
it wouldn't be worth your time.
Okay, and I don't know. I'm just, I just wonder if there's.
It wouldn't be worth your time and investment and the license you'd have to get from the state to get your UBI number and all that. You got, I mean, it's, again, Airbnb, VRBO, there's a higher threshold for participation. And I'm not positive that threshold is that high on other platforms. And if you're gonna make $2,000 for 4 nights in the summer, I don't really think it's even a part of the discussion because it's a one-off, and if the cops come, that's your problem.
There's nothing to stop you from doing that. You just wouldn't be able to list it on a site.
And your neighbors
Gotta-
might be. Might object.
Tony's going.
Tony, what do you got for us?
So I just did a quick lookup on
I
the,
put your, I'm gonna be on the watch.
Go ahead, Tony.
I did a quick lookup on the limit in Hood River for the number of vacation rental units allowed, and they
Yeah.
have no limit in the city itself. Hood
Yeah.
River County, however, has a limit of no more than 100 short-term rentals in the county. But
Wow.
the interesting thing is that Hood River itself and the county are having a very difficult time trying to nail down exactly how many there actually are because there's so much short-term rentals that are just taking place outside of the regulations. So the count in the Hood River County, even though they've limited it to 100, they already have, after that limitation, or I should say prior to the limitation, they have well over 100. So they're not allowing any more in. And as they drop off, they're going to try to get under that 100 limit. But both the city and the county are still trying to get their arms around how many there actually are.
Yeah, I mean, that number 23 we got, that was done by, you know, the prior staff.
Mhm.
So, you know, and they said that they went out and looked at a number of these sites. It would have
Yeah.
been 6 months ago, maybe?
Yeah.
Recent.
Yeah,
Mhm. Yeah.
fairly recent. So it's probably not comprehensive. I'm sure there's additional ones out there, just, I think.
I think the county has over 200, if I recall.
200 vacation rentals?
Not counting all the hotels and everything.
Yeah,
'Cause when you go
outside the city's limits.
Yeah, because if you go even just on VRBO or Airbnb, I did a quick search when we started talking about this. There were so many that are Skamania Lodge rooms listed. And Art Bliss and Wilder and Pines, you can't count those. That's not a true
Yeah.
vacation rental,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it makes it hard. And it also makes it hard, they're not listing the address
Well, yeah.
on those sites.
Yeah,
They
they
have a
list-
map feature.
They have the map feature, but you can put that home, it's kind of like
It doesn't
realtor.
have an
I can
address.
say I'm selling my house, it's just right up above your house, but I could put it over by the lodge.
But it does
So,
have contact info.
you know,
Yeah.
on religion. Yeah.
There's a map, there is a map feature, and even though it doesn't provide the address, that's a
Yeah.
good question.
Yeah, it makes it very
Depends on
difficult.
how much you pay for marketing. Thanks, you guys. I'm gonna ditch.
Thanks for your help.
Thanks, Ray.
So this is Dana. I want to thank everybody for the conversation, and I just wanted to chime in a little bit here. I'm Dana Hendricks. I'm a Stevenson resident for 18 years now, and I've just been watching the Airbnb situation grow over the last several years. My husband Paul was on council when in 2016 when they did pass the original vacation rental ordinance, and so. We've just kind of both been watching with interest as it grew, and my extended family comes to town quite often and loves to stay in Airbnbs. So we're really happy that there are some available. But at the same time, we've been kind of alarmed about how, especially really close to downtown, it seems like almost every other house is an Airbnb now. So I do feel many of us feel that it's starting to change the character, especially in the summer of the downtown area. But I think, from what I'm hearing tonight, and I'm glad to hear that a lot of people are in agreement that what we're concerned about is that out of town investors and these standalone houses that are being taken out of the housing stock by potential out of town investors. So I think if we put a cap on anything, that's what we should put a cap on. It makes sense to me. And I agree with what Addie said about the not restricting the vacation rentals that are where the owner lives on site because it's a home share of some kind or an ADU. I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think that does, like Addie said, it increases the density. And even if the current owner isn't going to make it a long-term rental, it could, by a future owner, it could become a long-term rental. So it could increase the affordable housing in our area just by increasing the housing. Even if it's currently used for an Airbnb, it could be more units down the road. So I'd love to see something like what Hood River put in place. I know they have residents only can operate Airbnbs, but they also have residents only who are on site. And it's one of those home share or ADU situations. So I'd love to see that. I know the standalone houses that we have, some of them are owned by Stevenson residents and they operate them even though they don't live there. They live in another house in town. I wouldn't want to take anything away from the folks that are doing that. But maybe that is the category that should be capped. Those standalone houses that are being rented out, and especially if they're being done by out of town investors. So that's my 2 cents, and thanks for the conversation.
Thanks, Dana. Well, at this point, yeah, I'd really love to be able to have your contact information because I think we're going to have a conversation. We're going to start fleshing out specific recommendations we want to make to the city council. Whether or not that's specific ordinance languages, the language, I don't know that we'll get that far, but specific things that we think should be in the ordinance. And we'd like to be able to get it back out to folks so that you can, get back to us. And because I really appreciate the time, myself and my wife. Okay, great, thank you. Really appreciate the time, so. Let's, we should have put out that sign sheet. So, anything else that folks want to weigh in on? And again, I think if something comes to mind here in the next few days, Wes, can they get a hold of you if
Sure.
they've got additional thoughts?
Mhm.
And Wes can
Absolutely.
get them out to us on the planning commission?
Yeah, absolutely.
What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts? been the most quiet.
Sorry.
Introspective. I mean, this isn't a new conversation and it touches on a lot of other aspects that we've dealt with planning. So it's kind of its own entity, but it also is heavily related to a lot of other things. So it's kind of it's a big organism. And, it's definitely helpful having input and also being able to look at other communities and see what caused them to start to have to deal with this and how they dealt with it, whether they were successful with it or the things that didn't work. And so we're trying to parcel out, what is the best way to address what clearly is a potential situation and how to do it in the most progressive and thoughtful way and not in a reactive way 4 years down the road going, oh, if only we had, because we can always change things later, but it's very hard to back up once you've kind of driven over that pothole. So yeah, it's continuing dialogue and it's great having extra input and points of view to kind of spark new concepts and new ideas.
And anything you want to add?
No, we definitely have had a lot of dialogue about this. I do have a concern like you do, we live in America, you should be able to buy a home and do what you want with it. But at what point does that become an issue on our very small town? That's the whole, I don't want my next door neighbor renting their home out and having parties. And the one thing that has not been brought up tonight, which we have discussed, we have 1.9 sheriff's deputies for Stevenson at any time.
Sure.
So, they can be off chasing a bad guy and not be able to come for a pretty serious situation if something got out of hand here. So that's another thing to think about. But it's been very interesting to delve as deep as we have into this, and it's nice to hear other people's opinions.
Tony, anything you want to add?
Sure. I think that we have to recognize that Stevenson and these towns in the gorge are truly attractive places for people to vacation. And the reason that Hood River and White Salmon have buckled down on trying to get these ordinances in place is because they were running behind the curve on their city was being changed in a way that they viewed unfavorably, and they wanted to start to limit that unfavorable outcome that the short-term rentals were causing. I think it's to Stevenson's benefit to get policies in place that will help us be out in front of this before we're trying to play catch up. So I think that all of this dialogue and input from the community is very beneficial, and that hopefully we can come up with some positive policies in the near future.
I'm a longtime resident of Stevenson. And I like our little community and I like our neighborhoods. And I'm informed by what I've seen some of the other communities doing in terms of their ordinances. But I don't know, I don't automatically think that's the solution for here. I think we can be informed by that. There may be some good ideas. But I think trying to make something work really has to come from the folks that live here as well. And so, that's why I think this type of a work session is really helpful for us. I mean, we don't have an ordinance out here. We don't have to have a formal public hearing. We can have that conversation with folks. So I think that's really important. And I appreciate the time that you spent with us tonight. I know there's probably, other things you'd rather be doing, but really, thank you so much.
Oh, no, Jeff, we'd rather be here.
Mary, I know you're.
Thanks for hosting us.
So thank you much. Thank you too, Dana, online.
Not just you.
Anything you want to close up with here at this point in time?
No, I don't think so. I would like to ask you though, do you feel like you've received enough feedback to move forward with, recommendations to council? Should we receive more? I'd just like to get your opinion on next steps.
I'd like to work up, kind of take what we had, sort of what we had and we sent to the city council early on. Sort of start to develop that more, get it back out to the other planning commission members to take a look at.
Okay.
And then less we can sit down and
Sure.
and talk about that. If
Thank
they-
you all very much.
How far along is it? Is it far enough along to go to council?
Right, okay. Is
The
that,
next meeting.
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah, I think last meeting, we touched on some ideas that seemed to be favorably incorporable. And so I'd like to touch base back on those again in a larger conversation. To kind of give us that guide.
But I think too, one of the things that I've learned since our last conversation is a sort of distinction between that sort of in-house, vacation rental and the standalone separate dwelling. Because those really do need to be handled differently, I think, in my mind.
Well, and some of that has to do with the platform. Some platforms specifically don't allow you to be a shared space. It has to be, there isn't a homeowner there giving you the tour of the TV room and such things as that. And so I think there's gonna be rentals on some platforms that allow for that and other platforms that don't.
yeah, Jeff, I think you bring up a good point because before tonight and the discussion we had, when I just thought of vacation rentals, I just thought of a standalone house where nobody's in it. But it seems like there are quite a few homes here and maybe that are home sharing. And I think there really is a difference that needs to be fine tuned between what a regulation is for a standalone.
And there's, some interesting stuff. We start going through those other ordinances in terms of, in Hood River, they have some very specific prohibited activities that go on, partying, et cetera, weddings. And what was it? Unattended barking animals.
That's a biggie in vacation.
Yeah.
I'm sure it
That's a
could be.
biggie.
Yeah, I'm sure it could be.
And we don't have animal control.
Right.
Not that they could enter.
So does that sound like a path forward? I'll work up something, put those ideas out to you. Wes, you might also want to talk about, what you're doing in terms of the planner position to sort of match up, with what will be going on the permitting side.
Sure. So we have started hiring, as I'm sure you're all aware, of the city planner, and we will be starting first round interviews this week and also send them the questions that you all came up with to get sort of their writing style and their feedback on and their approach to more specific planning related questions. And then after that, move on to a final round and hopefully have someone on board in December. So again, this position will be slightly pared down from Ben's role and be focused, specifically on land use and planning. And what I'm really hoping in that, what we were doing with taking Ben's position up here and Tiffany's here and leveling them out with Daniel and the new city planner is to really have that cohesiveness between planning and land use and also making it easy and making sure that we're effective in terms of permitting and applications and so that people who are going through the proper process for a vacation rental, that it isn't so cumbersome. Because as I found that there really wasn't any process in place, that there may have been a mechanism set up to capture the licensing fee, but that really, in terms of on our end, that just wasn't in place. And so now, as we get back up to full staffing capacity and with Daniel in the new expanded role, I'm thinking we can really hone in on that. And so I'm not sure that we can necessarily get the city planner on to have, you know, a large role in this discussion, that given the pace that we're currently at, but I'm hopeful that they can come and add some perspective to it. So, sorry, long way of saying that, yes, I'm hopeful that the city planner will be on board soon and can add some value here.
Yeah.
So,
And we'll get some insight in terms of how they responded to those questions we sent.
exactly. One thing I would like to ask you all, would it be helpful to start a shared document, say in Google Docs or something like that, to where if Jeff would like to start it as the base template, and then you can add your comments and edits and things like that? Is that helpful? Is that something you would all like?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, we can do that.
Yes.
okay,
In the interim, I can, you know, I've got the email addresses, I think, for all the planning commission members, so I can still use those.
great.
And I have a tendency to put, you know, Wes, you'll put on there, Daniel, I'll put you on there too, so that,
Yeah.
you know, everyone knows.
You have all this free time again.
Yeah.
Now he's still in charge of us.
I know, I was like, oh, man, does that mean that I gotta like,
Yeah, you were next in line.
I only got like 2 more months to make it. It's like, oh, no.
Oh, sorry, but one thing before going, and I just thought about with the city planner and that when they come on board, is in the process, we need to do more research and find out the exact number of homes, or search online, you know, on Airbnb to find out what the numbers are, or to look at different ordinances. Please let me know, and that's something that staff can work on, and the new city planner as well.
Are
Yeah.
we allowed to have access to the spreadsheet of the existing
Oh, yeah,
VRBOs?
of course, yeah,
Yeah, that would be
yeah, that's
good.
public record, so.
Yeah,
mhm.
yeah, that would be good.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not so sure it's critical. I think at some point in time, we do want to try to go out and determine what the universe of
Mhm.
vacation rentals actually is. But
Yeah.
I don't think it's critical to what we're doing right now.
No,
Right, well,
I agree.
well, and my only concern there is if we put a cap on it, and we're not, I think as Mary mentioned, that if we really are underestimating the number of vacation rentals there are, and not necessarily for the ones who are trying to fly under the radar, but for the ones who think they've gone about the process properly, but have been confused due to a lack
The
of
disconnect
the
between the
disconnect
state and
between
city.
and city staff, exactly. So that was my only.
Yeah, I would
Worry there.
think that those 23, I would consider them to be grandfathered.
Mhm.
But you raise that question, what's out there that we don't know about?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think using just the percentage formula to kind of rough out a number at the time, you know, so that we have that base number.
And I think we may have more latitude than we think, because if we're talking about a lot of these that are in a home or in an ADU, and we're not going to include them in the numerical cap anyway.
Are we or are we not?
Right, I didn't know it'd be part of the discussion, yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah,
yeah.
Because it is still a vacation rental.
it is still a vacation rental, but it's not,
I know, that's the whole.
it doesn't have that same impact. I mean, it's,
Mhm.
you know, but that is a question we're gonna have to address,
Yeah.
you know, are they included in that cap or are they not?
Yeah.
Yeah, it gets a little tricky if you start trying to
Main aspect.
divide aspects of that, because then you have, you know, like,
You did this with so.
how many checks did I have on this box that I was able to do it? But now that I wanna, you know, my neighbor wants to do it, he's missing one check, and it's kind of like, you have to have a fair set of rules and apply them to
Absolutely.
everyone.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
so, you know, once you start to break that up, not only because it becomes cumbersome to, you know, from the management side,
Right.
But then you get people that feel like, well, that's not fair because it's not a universal rule.
Yeah.
And so I think, you know, we'll probably have to discuss that a little bit more and see how to deal with the difference between those two entities.
Yeah, and both, well, all three of the ordinances have the home share provision there. I'll go back and look at White Salmon and Benton and see how they, because I think they do include them in the cap.
I mean, again, I mean, it goes back to, you know, it's still a business being run in a residential area. You know, and like whether it means that you share the kitchen with them and they're just renting a bedroom and a bathroom, or they have the whole bottom floor and there's an efficiency apartment, but it's in the same house. You know, those are very subtle differences, but it's still a vacation rental versus my ADU that's above the garage that's not attached, but
It's still a big
it's
issue.
still a vacation rental. So you have, you know, just right there, you have three different versions of the same thing, all of them creating revenue as a business in a residential area.
Right, and exactly, and I think as part of this process, what I'm hoping for is that we make sure to look at the fine line between nuance and fairness and wanting to make those distinctions,
Yeah.
but also simplifying it so it's not
I mean,
so cumbersome at the same
right, I
time.
mean,
Yeah,
fair and simple sounds really easy, but it takes a lot of effort to get to that.
yeah,
But once you get to that and it's simple and everyone can understand, it's, you know, there's always gonna be people that get hurt feelings about things, but on the whole, you want it to be as open and fair as possible.
right.
Yes. As a US Senator who will go unnamed once told me, you have to be equally fair or equally unfair.
And that's true.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, anything else, Tony? Any last comments you want to make?
No, I think that, yeah, we've got some more discussion to do, but I think we're getting closer.
Yeah, I do too. Thank you.
Great.
Wes, for your help in getting this together and helping us as we work through without having, you know, planning staff.
Yeah,
I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
I motion.
Well, he's entertaining.
Well done.
I'll second.
I got you.
We'll go around
I
back.
got you.
Okay, we stand adjourned.